Should you decide little Mikey is going to study with me? Should little Mikey actually keep his promise to practice 3 hours a day, 5 days a week? He said, what's going to happen is he's going to start to complain to you. And he said, don't call. Everything he's going to say is true. I only teach people who want to become the best saxophone players in the world. And I don't care how old he is. This is between him and me. And then he looked at me and he said, so what do you think? And I don't know what possessed me. But I said, yeah. And we shook on it. And we left. But understand, he didn't know why I was so willing to say yes. First of all, I knew he didn't mean any of it. Understand, I knew he wouldn't remember. I knew my parents wouldn't remember. I knew parents and older people lie. It was simply that. I also knew if it took somebody else 3 hours a day to do, I could do it in about 15 minutes because I was just a natural. So I figured this was a breeze. I get to go to Hollywood, California every Saturday morning for a saxophone lesson with a guy who teaches the best saxophone players in the world, and it would be a piece of cake. So my first week I practiced maybe 3 hours, period. And Saturday came. And I went to Hollywood, California, and to Merle's studio. And I sat down outside and waited for him. And then he called me in. And I put the music book, the Close book, up on the music stand, just like that one. And I started to play. And about a minute went by, maybe two. And he said, stop. Put away your horn. What did I say to you? I said, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. You didn't even come close. That's one. There is no two. Go home, do what I say, and come back here next Saturday if you are ready to become one of the best saxophone players in the world. Because you could be, but you won't. Well, I left about 55 minutes early. Got on the bus, went home, and then I had a decision to make. Now, you might think the decision was, am I willing to practice 3 hours a day? And the fact of the matter is that wasn't the decision at all. The real question was, do I want to become one of the best saxophone players in the world? And if I made that commitment to become one of the best saxophone players in the world, and if I was going to entrust Merle to become my saxophone master, then I had to do exactly what he said in exactly the way he said it. Otherwise, I was through. For whatever reason possessed me, I stayed with Merle for the next 9 years. My second master said identically the same thing to me. He said, if you're going to become a master at this, he didn't know Merle. Merle didn't know him. If you're going to become a master at this, you're going to have to do this exactly like I tell you. Not like that, but like this. Memorize this script and go down the street exactly the way I say it and say exactly what I say to exactly who shows up, and something miraculous is going to happen. Merle said to me, Michael, you don't make music. Music shows up. My saxophone, my sales manager master said, Michael, you don't make a sale. The sale shows up. And it shows up when you do exactly what you're called to do in exactly the way you're called to do it. No, not like this, like that. Just do it. And I did. So now I had two masters who taught me two different things, but each of them taught me in exactly the same way, and in each case, I mastered exactly what I was there to master. Well, after a little while of selling encyclopedias, I was tired of working with my mouth, so I thought I'd work with my hands, and I became a carpenter in Southern California. Now, understand, by that time, I was in my mid-30s. And I knew nothing about carpentry. I didn't even know how to swing a hammer. I was an absolutely rabid romantic. I honestly thought that working with my hands had more meaning than working with my mouth. So I simply showed up on the job, the first job I could convince somebody to take me to do, and they fired me in about 12 minutes. And I showed up on the next job, and they fired me in about 13 minutes. But every time I showed up on a carpentry job, I learned by watching what somebody else did. And then I did the next one, then I did the next one, and then I actually stayed for over 3 years, and they assigned me to this man who was a carpenter master. And lo and behold, the guy said exactly what everybody else had told me. Don't do it that way, do it this way. Don't do it that way, do it this way. Do exactly what I tell you, exactly how I tell you, and you'll be able to master this too. And lo and behold, I did. And then Ace took me to visit his Silicon... Are you still with me? Took me to visit his Silicon Valley chief executive officer, founder, president of this startup high-tech company in the middle of where all this stuff was going on. And Ace took me in and he introduced me to Bob. And he said to Bob and he said to me, Bob, this is Michael. Michael, this is Bob. Look, why don't you two guys get to know each other? I'm going to take off for an hour. I'll be back and I'll pick Michael up. Now, I knew something, first of all, that I didn't know anything about business. And I knew something else. Because Bob owned a business, I knew he did. So these are two assumptions I had when I sat down with Bob, the high-tech wizard in Silicon Valley, because Ace asked me to get to understand his problem, which was he couldn't convert leads into sales. So Bob said to me after we sat there uncomfortably for a couple of minutes, so Michael, what do you know about my business? And I said, nothing, Bob. He looked a little disgruntled. He said, well, what do you know about our products? And I said, less than that, Bob. And he said, Michael, if you don't know anything about my business and you don't know anything about our product, how in the hell can you help me? And I said, I haven't a clue, Bob. Ace thinks I can. You like Ace. I like Ace. Let's see what happens. We've got an hour to kill. Now, understand, I didn't know this, but my life was to be transformed in that moment. Hear me. My life was about to be transformed. It was so unbelievable that what did happen could happen. If you had been me, knowing as little as I knew, other than I actually had been taught by 3 extraordinary masters how to do 3 completely inconsistent, incongruous things. Playing the saxophone, selling encyclopedias, and framing a house. What lessons have you missed when you suddenly miss the pattern that's revealing itself in your life? The entrepreneur within sees